Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Today is the penultimate day of scoops. Hope you're all excited. We got my favorite faction scoops, um, and we got them via the fantastic uh, most middleist podcast in all of Netrunner, Slumscast. So of course there was only one guest I could possibly have on for tonight, and that is of course Phil Zeroth Maxima. Hello, Phil.
Oh, hey, thanks for having me on. I think
Uh,
fantastic and most medium or whatever is kind of antithetical. Anyways,
hey,
it's not the same thing at all. I
well,
cannot endorse this, is what I'm saying.
I mean, look, that's going to be your line, and my line is going to be that I got out of work 5 minutes ago, and so my language is going to be all over the place. But I'm not just joined by the lovely Phil. I'm also joined by the highly esteemed Seba, also known more likely as Pouch Surfer. So hello.
Hi everyone, and again, yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It's a honor to be on for the penultimate day of scoops.
Yeah. So I guess Pouch Surfer. I guess I don't know your Netrunner background that well. And I would imagine the audience at home likely doesn't as well. Do you mind giving us a little bit of a rundown of your Netrunner history?
Of course, yeah. So I'm actually a relatively new player. I've dabbled in the game back, I think, in 2015 or 16, but it was just like sort of tabletop. I remember playing maybe 2 or 3 games, trying my hand in deck building. Back then, I had not realized what influence was. So I was building decks that were just in one color, and they weren't working quite well with just a core set. And then I rediscovered the game during the pandemic. I started really playing, or started trying to play after PAX Unplugged in 2021, and so it's been not so long, yeah, the game sort of just like swooped me in real strong. So this is my first scoop season, and it's been a blast.
That's great to hear. Yeah, this has been I of the like I don't know why I don't remember the Ashes scoop season at all. I think for whatever reason I just wasn't. I feel like it was mostly out or something. I just don't know. I don't remember that season at all. But I remember the
It was
Gateway
a
scoop
lot
season.
slower, is the
Yeah,
thing. It was like not as many community scoops, mostly Nisei stuff. Um, yeah, it wasn't quite as big of a deal. I think it was much more tentative than we're seeing right now.
yeah, and then Gateway was like had a lot of community scoops and a lot of Nisei scoops, but it was also like a month long instead of 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Which I'm liking this 2 weeks or even like 10 day whatever it is a little bit. Also, a huge shout out to Jamie, the rules manager, saying just stopping by saying, "Oh, I've just been going through every single hyperlink in the CR, so that's thanks for doing that work. I'm glad it's you and not me."
Sounds like a fun little job to do. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we should actually get into those spoilers though, and we're going to do them. Actually, I have to admit I haven't had a chance to listen to Slums Cast yet. My
You and me
day
both.
it was a day full of training. Um, but let's get onto the cards. So this first one here is Into the Depths. It's a one cost Shaper run event, 3 influence, and its text is at the A Factor. I live in the Atlantic Ocean.
This one
So
is kind of a puzzle to me, honestly. Most of the action, like in the lore at least, has been very Arctic based. I don't really feel like Atlantic has come in quite a bit, but I think this is maybe alluding to a location which we've not seen yet, which is very exciting.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah.
And maybe this is like a bit of a quest card. Like maybe we'll be going to to Atlantis at some point. And
Oh
this is
yeah.
that's why we're diving into these depths, and maybe that'll be the result. In Parhelion after we'll have discovered what we got in the deep dive in the Atlantic.
Well, from what
So
I know, yeah, there's a lot less ice in the Netrunner future. So the Atlantic probably bleeds into the Arctic a lot, and you're going over the Arctic, new shipping channels, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I do see what you're saying. Yeah, a quest kind of crossing the Arctic into the Atlantic.
I think the most
yeah.
puzzling part of me is still this A factor. I'm wondering if this is going to be like one of the last spoilers that comes out.
Yeah, it might even be in the next set. I know they've referred to a neutral runner in
Right.
Parhelion. The A
Oh,
factor.
That's
I
interesting. Yeah.
mean, that's a big clue, I think.
Yeah. Oh wow, they're like burying the scoops real well. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty
I
good.
mean, I know Nisei got criticized for like not having really good lore in the shut up and sit down video. Like the universe feeling a bit flat. I'm really excited to see a card game take this big of a swing on really building up the lore. But
Yeah.
let's go on to the next card in the set. Propeller, 1 cost, 1 MU, 2 influence, 0 base strength. It's a fractor, and it says, "The boys on Shark Tank just loving my propeller beanie that sprays piss everywhere while it spins." Um, now,
I love the take on Spin Doctor there, in the text of the card. I think it's really interesting to have these like cross faction sort of references.
Yeah, and like
yeah,
just the text, it says splashable. And then you look at the inf to inf, very splashable.
Yeah.
Good merging of like mechanics and flavor there.
the other thing is it does break our newest shark friend. Um,
Oh yeah.
So it even calls it out in the text. It says, "Hey, your opponent might be playing a Carl, but this repeller here, it's gonna go and spray some piss all over that Carl." So
Yeah. Is this maybe an allusion to the classic Enchanted Piss Forest of Wizards Digital Realm?
that is a great callback, and I do love Nisei going into the deep stim hack meme channels and doing the callback. I'm sometimes critical for Nisei for being a little too self-referential and pat on the back, but like this is the kind of self-referential I like, where it stands on its own, but if you know it, it's just like it just makes the card so much richer. So
Absolutely. And like one to install, like, come on, Shaper needs that kind of gas, and I'm
yeah.
I'm glad to see it, especially with this kind of effect.
Yeah, and once it's sprayed its load, you can sell it to Aesops and just keep on trucking.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's move on to our next card. It is a 0 cost resource location, 1 influence. This is all exciting. It's called Stone Ship Chart Room, and its text is, "The blue thumbtacks on this map indicate concentration of high Luna energy. The red ones are all the Panera breads I've been banned from." And its flavor text is, "Every ship is a home, and every home needs a heart."
Oh, some of that Shaper love.
Yeah.
This is really fantastic. You see some heavy lifting here in the middle of the card by the translation team, adding a Asian language glyph there, and then translating it for those of us who are not so inclined.
Yeah, I wish I remembered my Chinese at all. Just I only took it for like 6 years or something. Um, that I could remember how to just what the actual how to pronounce that character. But um, yeah, it's really cool. That I saw some people complaining the other day about having a hard to pronounce set of names, and I certainly struggled with some of them. But I think it's, I also, despite like making a little bit of a joke about it in my video, I really enjoy having to learn new things about the world, and having them exposed to me on cards is a great way to kind of start dipping your toe into these new things. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, again, this is a card I think that alludes to something else. The Luna energy, right? We're not on the moon this cycle, but we know the moon controls the tides. They who control the Luna energy controls the tides, perhaps. It's like, wow, this is a banger.
And
yeah,
and
and
and when I guess we're not talking about is this confirmed? Is Chabada CDM a counter to this? considering they've been banned from all the Panera breads.
That's
Yeah.
a good shout out. Yeah, Ciabatta CTM is pretty much a hard counter to this to the whole strategy you'd build this card around, and you sort of just have to hope that you can avoid the DQs that can happen sometimes in board states with those two cards in play.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love the trade off here, right? It's a resource location, 0 cost, really cheap, but by playing it, boom, instantly banned from all the Panera breads. So, yeah, you really have to weigh your options, but I think a good player can make the right choice as to when to install this resource.
And just to say, Misa, not you, I am pretty ashamed that I haven't listened to a 2-hour podcast on the scoops. If I had not had a trainer coming in to teach us stuff about our $500,000 pieces of equipment, I would have blown everything else off to listen to this and just said, I'm sorry, I have to miss every other meeting today. I've got a much more important thing to do.
Sometimes it's important to like flip the script and be like, whoa, I know capitalism is important, but y'all need to listen to this podcast. However, the Slums cast is not in it, so no shame.
Yeah. And to make up for it, I will have. Wow, I've had Eric on twice. I've had Phil on. I also had Orbital on, and then tomorrow we're having Neuropanzer on as well. So we should have a really full podcast content. And Retromancer was on as well. So
yeah.
I'm doing that coup of stealing everyone's content for myself. Let's move on to the final card before Phil realizes that he's been suckered and leaves. We've got a Anarch card. I don't know how this made it into the Shaper pool, but you know what? We'll take it. It's a 3-cost resource, unique, called the Twinning. It's a virtual resource, and it's 3 influence. And it says, "Welcome to the Citadel of Eternal Wisdom. Behold, the crystal contains the sum of all human knowledge, except rap and country."
I like the fact that I think this is a very powerful card. This is a really powerful effect, but I like how they tune it down a little bit with sort of removing rap and country. So it's not. I don't think it's overpowered. I think it's really strong.
Yeah, like if rap and country weren't like cornerstones of Netrunner, I think this card would be pretty busted. But
Yeah, it'd be busted,
because there's so many runner strategies built around those archetypes, I think it's this card feels a little more fair and more like just a kind of a push to some of the other less common strategies in the game.
Yeah.
Losing access to the what incarnations is a big deal. Let's not sugarcoat that. But still, the Citadel of Eternal Wisdom, and they gave this to Anarch. I have some complaints. Some complaints.
No, that's a really good point. Like, while this card's really a fun card effect, it really is a bit of a factional flavor fail. The Citadel of Eternal Wisdom is either Shaper or it's criminal because they stole the key card to get in. So, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, exciting card, though. Exciting card. Like, just the possibilities.
Yeah. Also, just an amazing Adam Doyle piece.
Absolutely. Let him out of the hand mines for once. Got him to draw something other than just the hands. Still some hands a little bit.
I do feel bad having written the drafter brief as which I think we've revealed for something, and it's full of hands, and I go, oh god, we're just a bunch of hand fetishists at Nisei apparently. I didn't realize I was, but I joined Nisei and immediately first alt, it's all hands all the time.
Nisei, all hands all the time.
All right. It's a Nats prize. Okay, so we have announced an Orbital, right? I'm not just like leaking Nisei shit all over the stream. Thank you.
People pay good money for Nisei shit.
All right, so I want to thank both the guests and all of you in the chat for hanging on to this bit for 15 minutes. Let's go and talk about some of the actual cards.
These aren't it. What?
So here we have Into the Depths, a 1-cost run event. The text of the card that we will be purchasing in Midnight Sun, though I will say, if you want to show up to an event of mine with drill text, I may allow it. It says, run any server. If successful, for each ice you have passed the server, resolve one of the following that you have not yet resolved this run. Gain 4 credits, search your stack for a program, install it, charge one of your installed cards.
This seems
So,
really good. Sorry, I'm just
It really
absorbing the
does.
text. I
Yeah.
have not seen what these cards actually do yet.
The joys of Slums Cast. So,
No, at worst, it's a dirty laundry, right?
yeah, it's now Shaper, like Blue got their Dirty Laundry, Anarch got their Sure Gamble in Wildcat Strike, so now we got to give Shaper their Dirty Laundry. It's like a Dirty Laundry, or it's also like a Bravado, but like Bravado's numbers are kind of cracked, so everyone else's Bravado has to be worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this on the success, not after the run is resolved. Yeah. So, I mean, you could fetch a program to help you maybe access more cards, although most of those are on the same trigger, so that might not work.
Yeah, I was just about to say like, oh, it's like, oh, I could grab a Nyasha, but I'm pretty sure that's a Nombo.
Yeah, Xer might work, maybe. I don't know if that's something you really want to splash your influence on, but maybe it would work.
Whenever you access, oh, actually, Nyasha is whenever you access cards. Oh no, whenever it's a sorry, the real tech, the official Nisei text now is whenever you breach. But breach happens after success. So actually, you might be able to do this. Jamie, you're gonna have to correct me if I'm getting this wrong.
Nice.
But I think because Nyasha says whenever you breach R&D, you may remove one hosted power counter. Then because success happens before breach, you can grab it, which is kind of cool. Xer is also a good shout. Basically has the same text, but you're not influence.
Yeah, you could grab the new coffee one. I don't want to pronounce it because I don't know how.
Chesva.
Vespa?
Thank you so much. Help you trash something
Yeah.
if it's
Yeah.
on central.
Actually, if you're doing Chesva into the depths, like if you already have the Chesva out, you're probably making like that. This becomes a very nice dirty laundry and all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, Jamie is calling out, hey, if you went through 2 ice, you could grab that Nyasha and then instantly charge it with the second effect if you're going through 2
lovely.
pieces of ice.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I think
You
this is
can
a
resolve these in any order. Amazing.
yeah, and you can pick how many, up to 3 of them if you pass 3 pieces of ice, and that so like, you know, when the corp goes, oh, I'm gonna punish this Shaper deck by installing 3 ice on R&D. This now lets you say, oh, you know what? I can get in once. Maybe I'll use my boat to bypass a piece of ice. Then I'll grab the program so I can handle that ice the next time. I'll charge up the boat, and I'll make some money back for doing it. So it's it's got that nice that fun little ceiling.
Are the effects mandatory? Because it just says like resolve. So if you have gone through 3 pieces of ice, and let's say you gained 4 and charged one of your install cards, then you also have to search your stack for a program and install it.
Yeah,
Think
so
so.
when you can choose to fail to find to search your stack, even if
Gotcha,
you
okay.
had a legal target.
Right. I searched for Berserker. Oh no, it's not a deck. That's too bad.
Yeah.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah. So like, yes, you have to do all the modes, but even if you have only like, if you, somehow your deck was full of legal targets, like you still would not ever have to install a program for it.
Right.
So that's
Even if you're the professor.
even if you're the professor. And actually, speaking of programs you might like to install, let's go on to the Propeller. It's a 1 cost, 1 MU, Icebreaker Fractor. Shapers have been hurting for a Fractor for a long, long time. And let's see if this is any good. It says, when you install this program, place 4 power counters on it. Interface 1 credit, break 1 barrier subroutine. All right. Hosted power counter plus 2 strength. And then it has a base strength of 0.
It actually is quite good against Hakarl.
Yeah, it is
Oh
actually
yeah,
quite good against
Two
Carl.
counters, two
yeah,
credits.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Oh, Xichling. Yes, I was thinking Takobi as well. Use all your power counters. Charge up that Takobi. And not just with the charge mechanics, just organically, if you will. But you could do both. And then you don't even need the hosted power counters to give it +2 strength. I think Takobi gives you +3 strength, which is a
Yeah,
much
it's
better deal.
it's plus 3
Well,
strength,
for two
but for 2
counters.
power counters. So actually, you're getting more strength per power counter by charging your propeller than your Takobi. But you can be breaking stuff with your propeller and kind of simultaneously charging your Takobi. Yeah, this is like I think this is interesting because one strength is kind of annoying for a lot of stuff. Like if this was one strength, it might be the only fractor Shaper ever needs because like most of the ice you're
Yeah,
breaking is border control, right? There's a
absolutely.
lot
Yep.
of one strength barriers around. So this is still going to break a border control 4 times, which is pretty good. For 1 credit and then paying 2 per break, like that's paperclip numbers, but it's sort of finite, which I think is a space I'd sort of missed Shaper Breakers being in. Um,
Yes. And they've tried, they've had the Gauss.
yeah,
Um, and it doesn't feel as good. Yes, it is, that instant install boost, but like that never feels quite as good as something like this that you really have to manage. This feels better in this set, obviously, with the charge mechanic. You can add more counters onto it as well, but just as a base, as a one-time breaker, this feels better.
yeah. I also want to say like Solemn Storm shouting out like, hey, maybe you could look at like Ice Carver or Leech going back in
Yeah.
the Shaper
Yeah,
rig so that you have you can get all this value from running, which is a thing that Shapers haven't looked to do in boy since maybe Catnid back in like 2013 or something.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, now that we can use our dirty laundry to maybe go fetch leech, it's not a bad idea.
that's pretty
yeah,
good. And I think it seems like this new shaper really wants to run quite a bit. I think in order to keep up the charge mechanic and keep your power counters not just on propeller but also on endurance, I think you really do want to be running. And so at that point, having leech I think makes a lot of sense.
yeah. I think this propeller slots super nicely in a backup breaker slot, which is often what you feel like you want. Like your barrier breaker is often more of a backup breaker. Like I would say for most factions, even like yeah, everyone plays paperclip because it's great. Um, and then like after that you're like well most barriers are low strength if I'm sometimes gonna like engolo through barriers stuff it's like all I don't know it's kind of nice and it's like oh if I spend 2 card slots on propeller that feels better than spending 2 card slots on like a Gauss or even spending 4 influence on a paperclip because like there's ways you can in Shaper get advantage out of installing multiple propellers with stuff like Aesops or even like having 2 of these down and having like a unity out, like maybe that starts to be a kind of a reasonable board state that you could look at.
That's interesting. I
Yeah.
was thinking more, you just pack one, but you're also packing the simul chips, right? So if you
Yeah,
are breaking barriers over and over, you can use all those power counters, just flip them back over using your simul chip, and you're good to go for a while you kind of maintain the board state with something like
yeah,
the Endeavor or whatever that kicky code gate breaker is.
yeah,
Engolo,
in
of course.
Golo. Yeah, and I think Jamie's shouting out in the chat like this might be even better in like even in the decks that we're doing the bouncing breakers, this is probably still better than Gauss, which is
I
kind
agree.
of like if I'm bouncing this, I'm just getting back the 4 power counters, which is so much free strength.
Mhm.
So that's pretty exciting. Sebi, any other thoughts before we move on? Because I could talk about Shaper efficiency cards for all day if asked, but all right.
I think we're good to move on.
I think we're good to move on to the last Shaper
Yep, yep,
card.
yep.
Yeah, no worries. Stone Ship Chart Room, a zero-cost resource location. It has two abilities: trash, draw two cards; trash, charge one of your installed cards, and it is one influence.
I don't like the implication that every ship is a home and every home needs a heart. And then you got to trash your heart to get a minor effect.
It's a little cynical. Yeah, I agree. But I
But
mean, you
sometimes
do.
that's, yeah.
I like that you do need a heart to survive boom or
Yeah,
a flat line. I think maybe that's a flavorful connection.
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's interesting. Like this is sort of uh like this can be flatline protection, though you probably either need to have one of these down and always end on 5 cards, or have two of these down and have 3 cards, which is probably a little bit more doable. And you can always trash them to draw like whenever you need. So this ends up being card neutral, kind of. You click to draw it, you click to install it, and then you get 2 cards back at any time you want. So it's like
It's an
sort of,
instant speed oh shit card.
yeah, instant speed, oh shit. And the like charge might be relevant. It also is technically splashable, so like if we ever end up with like a David like card out at some point, this might be an easier splash than like a simul chip sometimes. Um, uh,
Yeah.
JPECO 12 saying they were wondering about building a Padma deck with the back today. And this card could slot in there, I guess, as a thing that you're recurring with the back, because it won't trigger the back, but like the endurance will, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So you can get a bunch of your trash cans and then cycle through them. Um,
It's interesting. It's not the tide bending Luna energy I was expecting, but it's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. I might have to petition Nisei to give it the official Slumscast text, because I think that might be a slightly more impactful card. But um,
I guess
yeah,
so. The clear comparison here, I guess, it is with Sports Hopper. And the thing that strikes me is the difference in cost. It's true you only get 2 cards, but the fact that you can like slap it down for 0 seems really quite good.
yeah,
You
Yeah.
never are sad like you never are sad to throw this down, as you never know when shit is gonna hit the fan if you're spending just 1 click, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess another interaction I thought of potentially is Reaver. This is a way to
Oh
fire
yeah.
Reaver on the corpse turn and draw 3 cards, all so that you can just get some extra gas basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
very good.
I really like it in Shaper because it is cheap. That's been one of the long time problems with Shaper is all your cards are somewhat expensive or MU intensive. And when you want to play something like the Arcation, your hand's already full a lot of the time, right? So it's nice having cards like this that you can like slap down whenever, doesn't really cost you tempo, and then you have room in your hand for the cards you're going to draw.
Yeah. All right.
I think it's
Should we?
not flashy or
Oh.
anything, but I think it's quite a nice little design.
Yeah, it's a role player kind of card. It's probably not one that you're like, oh, I'm going to build my whole deck around this. But there's going to be times where you're like, you know what, this card makes sense for the meta I'm seeing, or
Exactly.
the exact needs of my deck.
Yep.
All right, let's go on to I think the final card from Slumscast and the final card for spoilers today. It's the Twinning, a 3-cost virtual resource. So all you Apex lovers will really love this. It's the first time each turn you spend credits from an installed card, place 1 power counter on this resource. Whenever you breach HQ or R&D, you may remove up to 2 hosted power counters to access that many additional cards. And it's 3 influence, and the flavor text is always folding back, ever back, together as one.
This is so topsy turvy to me. Like This is a sit back and do nothing Anarch card, right? This is a build up counters, install stuff with Paladin, and wait to strike. Which is what the best Anarch decks do, but it's not really what you think of when it's the faction. Obviously, it also works with other cards you spend credits off of that aren't just sit back and build your board, but that's kind of what hits me originally.
Yeah, I mean, this does very much feel like it slots right in with the companions. But Pouch of
Yeah.
Formulas, I should give you your chance to talk about this card before I jump all over it.
Yeah, I just well, first of all, I'm still stunned by the art of this card. I think it's incredible, and it's really
Yeah.
cool that Nisei sort of pushing in directions that maybe aren't quite as expected. Yeah, I think it's incredible. But yeah, I like that they are sort of breaking this previous association with building up power counters with the turning wheel through runs, and now you can sort of I think I don't know if this is like jumping the gun, but I feel like it makes this card less good in criminal. Well, besides the 3 influence to play it there, and maybe a little better in Shaper or, well, clearly not Arc, of course. But yeah, I think I was thinking about the turning wheel and which Shaper faction it really benefited, and Steve came to mind, and I don't know if I want to play this in Steve anymore.
Yeah, I feel like as Crim, you're stuck. Like the neutral card that I can think of immediately that you can use this with is prepaid voice pad. But prepaid voice pad's been out of the meta for a long time because it's pretty slow. It's like It's like 3 or 4 turns before it pays off, and that used to be I mean, like Kate got a return on that even faster, and then also went through all of their events like 2 to 3. Well, really twice.
Yeah.
And like Steve has some of that idea, I guess, but I think like criminals are so like they have more good cards than they have slots to put them in. So putting in like a marginal econ card to then get a multi-access, I think is a little bit tricky for them to play.
I think it's hard to like decide to play prepaid and not play Patap or Rozeki or sort of the other really, really strong econ cards that, or sort of drape econ cards that Krem has.
Yeah, I think that said, like obviously every Anarch should have basically was already playing 2 Paladins, and so this goes really good there.
This is a card you could really build around.
Yes.
Divide and conquer with 4 tokens on this is just devastating.
Oh, that's a card I have not thought about in a long time.
That's a single run game winning strategy there.
Yeah, and throw in a sabotage on that, you're potentially seeing
absolutely
off the deck. Yeah.
So Guy Clickwill, sorry for that pronunciation, was asking, can you just on the corpse turn boost your breaker by 1 at any point? And the answer is yes. The challenge is that Trickster Taka specifies it's used during a run. Let's check Merker. Netmerker, no, you can use it at any time. Yep, so you could use Netmerker to trigger this. What other cards do we have?
Merker will trigger itself back also, so that
it
really double the speed, right?
Netmerker will trigger itself back when you use it during a run, but not... and then people are also calling out, yeah, you could play Chesvi, probably in Criminal, to access this. So, like, in theory, every runner faction has at least some kind of support for this. I think Shaper, as is usual, sort of has the only access to, like, off-turn stuff, mostly, like, during the corp turn. But yeah, it's, everyone's got some options. Chesvi is only during a central, so it's really going to be like Anarch and Criminal can get this at once per turn. Shapers could like charge this on their turn, the corpse turn, and then also get a charge trigger. So like could really stack this up pretty quick.
And no, this is this is a great win con to add to like all the options you can, right? This is a card you see, you're like, what else can I add around this to really make it go? Turning wheel was a bit of a win condition for sure, but a lot of the times it would be added after the fact. If I don't have any other options in the game, at least I could just click up wheels and maybe go for a deep dive at the end of the game. Um, so I think this one is a bit more build around just because of its condition. But I think, yeah, similar niche. But I do think we will see it quite a bit.
I very much agree with that, and I think it's what makes this card very interesting. I think the turning wheel is a cool card and a cool design, but you do just throw it in any deck and it's going to work. Whereas this one, you sort of have to really build around it or think about the kind of support that it needs, which makes the design of the card a lot more interesting, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. D&D DMDB is saying that they're surprised it's the Anarch card. I think at some point, I'm hoping Nisei talks a little bit more about why this is an Anarch card. I think the art on it's astounding, and I'm sure there's a thematic meaning behind the word the twinning. It's not grokking to me, but that doesn't mean like that's just the nature of the card to some extent. To some extent, it might also just be Anarch because like the companions are the thing you were already playing, and this fits so well in the companion decks. So
I think on
the
the
tw-
Slumcast, if I remember right, they were talking about the twinning. I think Zoe was talking about the twinning being a referring to crystal twinning, which is what's depicted in the card. And I believe it's when crystals two crystals grow out of the same sort of structure. But that's as far as I know about it. I'm not really sure how it fits into the lore or theme
Theme
past
of
that.
it. Yeah. 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 I
okay,
love the art though. Like
yeah.
depicting Essa, yeah, putting a stop to the industrialization. Um, really speaks to the lore around that, obviously.
Also, username equals pants. One of the creators of the Slumscast said, "Hey, if you want to know more about the actual theme and lore behind this card, do listen to their podcast where I went and got these scoops, and they were grateful enough to let me break their embargo to show these today." So, huge shout outs to username equals pants, also known as Neuropanzer, and Orbital Tangent, who was by earlier, might still be around. Looks like it might still be according to my stream chat logs. Please don't just listen to my stuff. They put out a fantastic podcast episode. I haven't listened to it yet, but every other one they've put out is fantastic. So I'd be pretty surprised if they broke that streak. Um,
If I can
so
offer a counterpoint, it would be to read what's on my shirt. I do not listen to the Slums cast. I encourage everyone else to also live by that mantra.
yeah, D&D is like, I know Nisei wants to move towards neutral cards, move away from having neutral cards and putting them in factions. But surprised that this is Anarch, which I think is like maybe a philosophical thing. I guess my perspective is this going in Anarch, like you could make an argument this is a Shaper card, but like I do like that this calls back to the previous set's mechanic for Anarch. Even though I'm not personally the biggest fan of that mechanic in that faction, I think having that consistency and carry through, I think is nice. And then fitting in cards that are out of faction but synergize with charge make Shaper deck building, I actually think, more interesting because you get to actually weigh some costs and benefits of including different cards.
And I think it's balanced also in a sense around resources being trashed with tags, Anarch being one of the factions that has the least counterplay to avoid tags, right? We've seen a new card to avoid tags out of blue. Shaper still has misdirection. So obviously, Anarch has excellent econ, which helps them not get tagged a lot. But I think it's a bit balanced around that, right? This card is actually safer if you play it in Crim. It's safer if you play it in Shaper in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah. I think I agree. I guess Pouch Surfer, how do you like? You have not been around that long. Does this feel like it fits in Anarch or belongs somewhere else to you? I'm kind of curious about your perspective on that.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. No, I don't think like I don't think it does in my sort of understanding of Anarch. It does not fit, at least like thematically, in what I imagine is the Anarch faction. And I don't know if that means um well, I mean, it clearly fits from a mechanics point of view, I think, with the companions. I wonder if Nisa is just sort of breaking a little bit in some directions the sort of like one-to-one um, relation between a faction and what's sort of thought of it of being sort of belonging to that faction. Um, yeah, to me, this sort of looks like a Shaper card more
Hmm.
than an Anarch one. You sort of just like sit back and build, and you can afford to do that because you're increasing the threat that you're putting on the corp.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting to see how it's going to work in Anarch. Yeah, that's going
I,
to be
I think
interesting to see.
I think maybe one thing that maybe will make this feel a little more anarch, like there's always this thing where like, oh, the cards on on the page read one way, and then in play might play a different way. I'm going to take a second to advocate for why this might feel kind of anarch. Um, the idea to me is like, oh, once I get my third counter on this, I'm not making my next run any better at accessing a central. So even though I could sit back and build and build and build and build in a classic Shaper way, there's actually some impetus to continually go forward and use this because the odds that I'm going to have a turn where I can run all three, run HQ like 4 times and dump 8 counters, like it's not a great play pattern for your win rate, and B, like it's hard to run that much, but like running every other turn is it's a Hoshiko thing, and it's making these like strategic runs that can go at HQ or R&D for impact has been sort of like part of the Anarch play style of poking where the corp is weakest and trying to put on this kind of pivoting pressure. So that is maybe an argument that this fits well. This will fit better in Anarch play than it reads as an Anarch card on the page. Um,
I I think that's a very good point, and I think to me, yes, I agree with you. This looks very much like a Hoshiko card, and I would sort of offer as a counter argument that Hoshiko maybe is not like the most traditional of Anarch identities, although it is, to me, it does signal Nisei wanting to sort of um, explore more the game space around a
mhm.
given faction. But I agree. The one thing that strikes me with this card in ESA is that um, with her ID ability so built around core damage, it feels like the ID wants to be really fast, wants to sort of like go all gas and
Yeah, yeah.
sort of like take those great benefits from taking core damage early on, but then that plan sort of slows down pretty quickly due to how much core damage you can actually take. And this card seems a little slow in that respect. Um, Sort of like compared to that maybe faster game pace. But yeah, I'm excited to see how it plays in ESA.
We
Yeah, for sure.
considered, because there's a big green heart on it. Maybe this is like, maybe this is another Slums Cast goof that they've just put the Anar card frame on this. They put SI right in the middle. But we all know it's a Shaper card. Maybe when the pack comes, if you just scratch off that veneer of Anarch that's on there, there'll be a nice green frame under it, and it'll all make sense.
So you would say we've been card and bamboozled?
I would never say something like that.
um, I don't feel like we need to stretch out on this one card today. I guess of the 4 that Slums Cast were, so actually of the 8 cards Slumcast showed today, do either of you have a favorite?
I mean, I love me some spinning piss. I'm not gonna lie.
I think the one that I find the most striking, or I think the one that I like the most is Into the Depths. I think it's really interesting the way it's constructed. I think I really like the almost sort of click compression that it gives to Shaper. I also really like that HB is in the art, and I'm like, oh, okay, click compression, HB is in the art. My
Oh,
brain goes,
oh wow! I had
I
missed
didn't see
that.
that.
I had not seen the card this large before. Also,
I do like the art.
a great Kira art. And honestly, like I don't think I shouted out Cat's Propeller art, but like I feel like Propeller is a very hard prompt to write and a very hard art to execute. But this is like actually I think fantastic. I've been asked to bring up satellite uplink. I have a guess as to why, but I'll be honest, it's going to take me a second.
I was thinking of that. I couldn't think of the card name, but now that you say it, yeah.
Let's
The
see.
card which features everyone's favorite
Yeah,
boxy
sorry. No,
lady.
I've got. It is 23 in the spin cycle. No, what's the Wi-Fi signal cycle? I'm trying to remember.
The Wi-Fi cycle.
I don't remember. I mean, I
Genesis?
wasn't playing the game back then, but I don't remember the Wi-Fi cycle.
Okay, you're gonna see what I mean by the
There we
Wi-Fi
go.
cycle in a second. Genesis. So yeah, it is very reminiscent, but also this at the bottom right corner. Tell me that's not just a Wi-Fi signal as their set icon. I dare you.
Yeah, yeah.
Did Wi-Fi exist in 2012? I don't know. I think FFG might have invented that one. But yeah, very reminiscent.
Yeah. No,
Great job from the art
that's a
director.
there's a
Once again.
couple of fun callbacks. I really liked the point out that that I think I stole for yesterday's stream from Andre that the Easy Mark style Crim card has an Easy Mark guy with a pad on it.
Oh, no way. Nice.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah.
Um, I guess. And do you guys have a deck you're most excited to build when we get the full set of cards on? Actually, I think supposedly spoiler season is all cards are known by Thursday, and P files officially open up on Friday.
Nice.
So
I have 100% win rate on JNet with the boat. So I think I'll keep going with that. These new cards are very exciting just to slot in. So yeah, I'll keep playing Shaper. Padma's been a great time.
Yeah, I think I'm excited about Shaper too. I think Padma is really interesting. What I really like is I think the concept of charge is very simple, yet I think it's pretty elegant. It's sort of just like making you think about what kind of cards you need to play, making you think how much gas you actually have, how much charge you can actually afford to put into your deck. I think it's a nice exercise on sort of balance. So I'm kind of excited to play Shaper. I know if Orbital and Neuropanzer are still in the chat, they're probably gonna be very mad at that, but just speaking my heart here.
yeah. Um, I'm
Which one's your
super.
favorite one?
So Essa's cards were mostly spoiled by the time that the JNet devs did their weekend update, and man, I played like 2 games and went, shit, I don't know that I can play anything else now. This is so much fun just burning through my card and deck, like turning into getting sabotages, and like I had a game. Oh goodness, I had a game where I Shtushka'd 3 times, then put down a DJ to Steve to then
Oh, no.
grab 2 more Chashtushkas, and it was so fun. It
Brutal.
was so fantastic. Um, it was fun to dunk on Nesmari that way, and then I got to go.
Nice.
That was I'm like, I'm probably never gonna have a game that fun again because people will make better corp decks, but it was it was quite the moment where I could go, okay, I'm gonna DJ Steve for Chashtushka. It was my only winning line, I think, because they had the winning 5-3 in the remote, and I was like, I need to get as many accesses on R&D as I can, so I'm gonna like sabotage myself, to get the trigger, then Cheshtushka, and hope that it was in the remaining 2 cards in R&D.
Yeah.
Pretty fun.
Nice.
No, all the
I,
new mechanics are fantastic.
They're good, and I gotta say, I can't wait to play them in person. I think both Mark and Sabotage are so fun to play in person. Like the idea of having to say, okay, Sabotage 4, and look in the core player like shed a tear of sweat as they try and figure out if they want to mill cards from their hand or just like gamble on R&D, or just like you roll your die to figure out what's your mark, and as the die like tumble, you're like, I really, really, really hope it's R&D, and then it turns out to be archives, and you're like, no, dang.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like that a lot.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things I had not realized about Sabotage is like, yeah, the corp's okay with milling up until the point where suddenly you're on game point. And then they have to go, oh shoot, now it's a real decision.
Yep.
And like every time you're like doing a large mill, they have to go, okay, what are the odds you get to game point / the win but on these mills? So, quite the
No, really
exciting
exciting set. I think, yeah, there's just a few cards left for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think
Like
it's.
2?
I think Sanjay is coming on to talk about. I'm gonna quickly cheat. We've got a Shaper card still to spoil, an HB card, though I don't know if that's actually in Sanjay's thing. I see a Jinteki card that needs to go out. So Sanjay maybe has all 3 of those, or maybe I don't remember. I think
Sanjay, yeah.
I
Getting all
think
the
his
scoops.
yeah, I forget when Sanjay's stream is. It may actually be after mine.
I think
If
it's at
that's
8 p.m. tomorrow.
okay, yeah. So I think tomorrow's stream is probably going to be a recap. Maybe we'll do some deck building or something. Oh, there's an article on Nisei.net. Oh yeah, that's going to be a couple of cards. So never mind. My guest tomorrow will have at least 2 cards to talk about, and if I can talk with the Retromancer folk about 1 card for an hour, I'm not too worried about making some content that people can enjoy tomorrow.
I so hope it's the Shaper card.
Yeah, there's actually there's I'm completely wrong on my counts. Jinteki's missing a couple of cards. HB is missing some cards. There's all sorts of stuff. So
Exciting.
yeah,
Nice.
it'll be an exciting last. No, tomorrow is Wednesday, right? Yeah, we've got
Few more
Wednesday and
days, yeah.
Thursday for scoops. So we've got a couple more little drips of the scoop at the scoops fountain, and then
Oops, trough, perhaps.
yeah, and then we're hearing that stuff is gonna be up on JNet. Well, PNP files sound like they'll be ready, and we'll be into the next era of Netrunner.
Oh, man. I've just
so
loved
exciting.
everything we've seen so far. Yeah, I'm so excited to play with these.
All right, well, thank you so much, Pouch Surfer and Phil, for coming on, and thank
Thanks
you
for having
everyone
me.
for watching. And for those of you who missed the start of the stream, I strongly encourage you to go back and watch the first 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't
Real
get
analysis.
better, but it does. It probably gets funnier as you see us get more desperate. So you never know.
No, I thought it was fantastic. Great work, Jeff, with these daily casts.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you, Phil.
It's been
Did
fantastic.
you have to license the rights from Ed? How does that
I
work?
did reach out to Ed in advance and go, "Are you planning on doing these?" And if he had said yes, I would have said, "Okay, how often can I be on?" And if he had said, but lucky for me, he said no, and so I got to just steal it from him. So
You've scooped the scoops.
I've scooped the scooper. Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So yeah, well, so for the final time, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you to my fantastic guests. I will see y'all tomorrow. I will not be streaming for the rest of this week, but I know Metropol Grid's doing a live stream on Saturday. I've forgotten, but there's someone who's going to be doing a stream as soon as JNet is up. So there's going to be a lot, and I will of course be streaming next week on Wednesday, full Borealis, and I've got. Oh yeah, I'll have a fun video. I got to sat down with with a couple of competitive players, including a certain world champion, to talk about winners and losers of rotation. So that should be. I'm gonna actually try and get that out on Friday. So hopefully, there'll still be some content, even if it's not new cards content. So I'll see y'all then. All right. Well,
Sounds good.
have a good night, everyone, and stay drill. So.
A trail.